When Keir Starmer's government announced they were scrapping mandatory digital IDs, you could almost hear a collective sigh of relief across the country. But what if I told you it was all smoke and mirrors? While you were celebrating the supposed end of a papers, please society, the government quietly confirmed that mandatory digital checks for employment are still full steam ahead for 2029. So, what on earth is really going on? And why the U-turn on the U-turn? This isn't just another political flip-flop. This is about the fundamental relationship between you and the state. It's about your privacy, your freedom, and whether any government should hold a digital key to your entire life. The announcement on January 13th, 2026, that the mandatory ID was being dropped was spun as a huge victory for civil liberties. But when you look past the headlines and read the fine print, a very different story emerges. A story that suggests the digital ID project isn't dead, it's just dormant, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. Today, we're going to dissect what really happened, why the government backtracked in the first place, and why the threat to our privacy hasn't gone away at all. Let's rewind to September 2025. The Starmer government, wanting to look tough on illegal immigration, unveiled its big idea, a mandatory digital ID. The Prime Minister didn't mince words, declaring, "You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID." This new ID, living on a gov.uk wallet app, would be required to prove your right to work by 2029. They sold it as a modern fix for a complex problem, a neat way to secure borders and streamline services. The backlash was instant and furious, obviously. The British public has a long-standing, almost allergic reaction to the idea of identity cards. Suddenly, terms like Britcard and Papers, Please were everywhere. Civil liberty groups like Big Brother Watch and Liberty Mobilised warning this would be the most significant expansion of state surveillance in a generation. A parliamentary petition to stop the scheme exploded, gathering nearly 3 million signatures, making it one of the largest in British history. Public support, which had been fairly strong, completely cratered. Polling showed that after Starmer's announcement, approval for the idea plummeted from 53 to just 31%. Faced with collapsing support, a party rebellion and a full-blown privacy revolt, the government buckled. On January 13th, 2026, they announced the plan to make the digital ID mandatory for rights-to-work checks was being abandoned. The headlines called it a major victory. The government had listened! Or had it? This is where the official story starts to fall apart. While the headlines screamed U-turn, ministers were choosing their words very, very carefully. Keir Starmer himself went on television and rejected the claim that it was a U-turn at all. He told Parliament, there will be checks, they will be digital, and they will be mandatory. So what does that actually mean? The government has scrapped the plan to force every worker onto one specific government-run digital ID system. But, and this is the whole game right here, they are still 100% committed to making digital right-to-work checks mandatory for all employers by 2029. This isn't a cancellation. It's a rebranding. It's a strategic retreat. By ditching the single most toxic word, mandatory, from the ID itself, the government hopes the public anger will just fade away while keeping the core of the project alive. Think about it. If every employer is legally required to perform a digital check, and the government is rolling out a free, convenient, all-in-one gov.uk wallet app to do it, how voluntary is it really? Sure, you might be able to use other digital IDs like an e-passport, but the path of least resistance will always lead back to the government's own system. It's not a legal mandate, it's coercion by convenience. It's a voluntary system you'll find it incredibly difficult to live without. And this infrastructure is being built out at speed, totally separate from the right to work fight. The gov.uk wallet rollout began back in 2025, starting with things like a digital veteran card. By 2027, the government wants all its credentials, from driving licenses to DBS checks and proof of benefits, to have a digital version in the app. They're building a massive digital ecosystem that will touch every part of our lives. The scrapped work ID was just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. This little sleight of hand from the government doesn't change any of the fundamental dangers that caused the public outcry in the first place. A system that's voluntary in name, but essential in practice, raises the exact same red flags. First, there's the problem of surveillance creep. Even if the data is stored on your device, as they promise, the system creates a digital breadcrumb trail every single time you need to prove who you are. Campaigners rightly warn this normalizes the idea of constant verification, turning our relationship with the state into one where we must constantly prove we're allowed to go about our daily life. It creates a framework that could easily be expanded. Today it's for work, tomorrow it could be for accessing healthcare, travel, or even using the internet. It's a system built for control. Second, the data security risk is enormous. The gov.uk wallet will be a giant, glowing target for hackers, a centralised point of failure holding the most sensitive data of millions of people. We've seen it time and time again. No government system is impenetrable. A breach on this scale would be catastrophic. Third is digital exclusion. Not everyone has a smartphone or is tech savvy. The elderly, the homeless, or other vulnerable groups are at serious risk of being locked out of the job market and essential services. The government says there will be alternatives, but in a digital by default world, those alternatives often become second class and inefficient. The promise to make it a passport out of homelessness was met with deep skepticism by charities who work with people who don't have phones, reliable internet, or even a way to keep a device charged. And finally, this whole fiasco shatters public trust. The government tried to ram through a deeply intrusive policy by dressing it up as an anti-immigration measure. And when that failed, they performed a purely cosmetic U-turn, hoping we wouldn't notice the engine was still running. They're treating the public like fools. An official was even quoted saying the change was to avoid the conspiracy nonsense about state control. A stunningly cynical admission that this is about PR, not protecting the public. So, where does that leave us? Keir Starmer didn't scrap the digital ID. He just scrapped the bad headline. The government has retreated on the most politically toxic part of the plan, but the long-term goal is exactly the same. A society where your identity is digitised, centralised, and managed by the state. The mandatory digital checks for work are the Trojan horse. The ever-expanding gov.uk wallet is the delivery system. They are counting on you to get bored and look the other way. They're hoping that by making the ID itself voluntary, the opposition will fade and we'll all get herded into their system out of sheer necessity. We can't let that happen. The fight against a papers please society didn't end in January 2026, it just entered a new, quieter phase. This demands more scrutiny, not less. It means we have to look past the easy headlines and understand what's actually being built. What do you think? Is this a sensible step into the future or a Trojan horse for state surveillance? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this is a conversation we need to be having, then please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who really needs to know what's going on.